Is everybody ready? Thank you all for coming. I am so glad you guys came. So today we're going over half of this class is super easy for me. The other half is something I really struggle with. So I'm inviting you guys to input what you have done and been successful with, along with what all my research is that I've done too. So garden scheduling and planting. The planting part, got that one. Scheduling, not so awesome at. So I figured if I have trouble with something, maybe somebody else does too, and we'll get along with it. So, no such thing as a black thumb. I am reminding all of us there's no such thing as a black thumb. Plants want to live. We just need to give them what they need. All right, so the plan, your planting schedule. So some of this is a little bit of review from the second class and the third class. But this is our hardiness zone. We live generally, I'm a 6A, some of you might be a 6 or a 5B kind of layer of level, depending on how far you go in. Our average frost dates for me, where I live, is it's like it starts about May 12th and it goes through October 7th. So about Mother's Day is when I generally guess that we're not going to have snow. I was looking through some of the pictures to get pictures though, and I had a picture from April 15th, and there was snow on the ground, and I'm like, alrighty then, today it could be snowy.
Was it 2019? Remember I was a mini snowman? There was no snow on the ground.
Yep. Yeah, so theoretically, May 12th is safe. However, every year is a little different. So when they put out all those gorgeous tomato plants, and you're like, I want to put it in the ground. Don't do it. All right. So this is also part of the stuff we've already gone over. Where and how are you going to get your plants? How many frost-free days do you have? Days to maturity, all of that you kind of sort of have to pay attention to, like when are we supposed to put it in the ground? For a lot of the cold crops, which is your brassicas, your broccolis, your greens, a lot of those, radishes, peas, onions, all of that can be going in the ground now if you've gotten them hardened off, if you've got plants, or if you're starting seeds. So some of that can already be started. Some of your warm crops, which are your solanaceous, like your peppers and your tomatoes and things that are really ornery when it gets cold, those you actually have to wait until after. Even though our last theoretical frost is about Mother's Day, you want to make sure that soil is warm enough before you put them in. Otherwise, you're going to put a pepper in the ground and the pepper's going to be like, I'm cold, I'm not going to do anything, and just be mad. And then it'll actually be bad at you for the rest of the season sometimes. They never catch back up. A tomato plant is just going to go, I'm not happy, but once it warms up, he'll take off and he'll be fine. But some of your things are a little bit more sensitive, like your peppers and your eggplants and anything like okra, things that are from the south and they want to be from the south. So the difference between your seeds and your plants, sometimes your seeds you have to wait, so like your cantaloupe seeds and your melons and your squash and all of that kind of thing, you got to make sure your soil's warm enough before you plant them, otherwise they can rot or run away. You get plants, so you can go and buy a cantaloupe plant or things like that. You can put it in a little bit different timing. Just the major thing is the soil warm enough for your plant to be happy once we've pretty sure it's not going to snow on us again. Okay? Spacing, this is also a little bit of review. So each plant needs a certain amount of space to grow. We all kind of understand that. Difference between a little bitty baby French marigold and the Cracker Jack monstrosity that's 2 feet tall, and I didn't know it was that big, and I planted it thinking it was going to be 8 inches. It was a little bigger than I thought. So know how big your plant is, and then what are you going to do with it? Are you going to be using it before it gets to its full maturity? So a lot of your greens are that way. Lettuce, if you're going to grow baby romaine lettuce leaves, you're going to be chopping that down really quick. If you're going to grow a full tall romaine lettuce, you're going to have to give it a lot more space because you want it to be there a lot longer and grow bigger. So what you're doing with it will often affect how your spacing goes. A tomato plant is an indeterminate or a determinate plant. The indeterminate will grow forever and ever and ever until frost kills it. The determinate plant stays a little bit smaller. It usually puts all its fruit on at one time, which is amazing for like, I want to make tomato sauce. I need a whole entire bushel of tomatoes. And your 4 determinate Roma tomato plants go, okay, you're gonna do that on July 23, because that's when we're gonna have all our tomatoes. So that's another thing to be cognizant of, the spacing on things. And once your determinate plant is done, that tomato plant has done all its job, you could take it out and put something else in there if you wanted later on or something like that. And then spacing your plants. Seed packet spacing, we talked about this a little bit. Like they're talking about this huge space with a row in the middle and you're spacing it this much. Depends on how you're planting it. If you're going to there we go, do square foot gardening or French intensive planting. So we kind of talked about those a little bit. If you have any questions about this, because this is a little bit of review, just going into the next place, let me know.
All right.
Yes?
How do you know whether your tomatoes are determinate or indeterminate?
The tag should tell you. So on the tag, it should say determinate or indeterminate. If there is no tag on your tomato, but you know it's like a beefsteak or a cherry type tomato or an heirloom tomato, a lot of those are usually indeterminate. They're going to be monsters. Your determinate tomatoes are more along the lines of your sauce tomatoes. So like your Romas, anything miniature is usually also a determinate size tomato. That's how they can keep it miniature, because it stops growing once it's set it. But yeah, the leaves won't tell you. Just looking at a random tomato plant, usually it will say it. It will always say it on a tag. If there's a tag, if there's a seed packet, it will say it on the seed packet. And if you ask what it is, oh, I think it's a beefsteak of some sort or a big tomato of some sort, usually those are your indeterminate. 1 year we lost all the tags for our tomatoes. I had them all sorted super neatly all over the organization, and Timothy was awesome and he was helping me move them, and they got moved out of my sorted organization, and so we had mystery tomatoes that year. I gave people tomatoes, I'm like, I have no idea what it is, but it could be one of these 7 things. And so some people were like, these were awesome. It's like, I've tried tomato they'd never done before. So this is a traditional row. This can work really well for certain things, like summer squash. You want to be able to get in there, see it. That might work really well for that. Your big winter squash, you're sticking it all in a row. It's all there kind of thing. Tomatoes, because you need to get on both sides of it. Some things like that. This one is generally rows are 18 inches apart between your plants, and then they're assuming you're walking between the rows.
If you're not walking between the rows, is it safe to plant them closer together?
Yes, so square foot gardening is you are not walking between rows because there's not a row, there's a bed or a section of things. This you can plant, that spacing still needs to be for what the plant needs. So my tomato plant needs two square or 2 round, a diameter of 2 feet for a tomato plant. So when I'm planting it in this, you're still making sure you're separated out. This kind of still puts it in a grid, and the engineer who came up with this was trying to make a really easy way for people to go, oh, I can put 16 radishes in this square foot. I understand that. You space them out 4 by 4, it's all good. Can you get them in tighter? Yes. But for the average person who doesn't want to do that kind of calculations math or has that kind of eye gauging, this is a way to put a little bit more plants in there. And this works really good for like peppers or things like that that are a little bit smaller, but you can still reach in over the bed. Never make your bed bigger than what you can reach into a little more than half. Otherwise, you will be falling into your bed and crunching your plants. I know this by experience. Okay. Here is a space in my garden where I did that square foot, and what I did was I had radishes and beets on succession planting, and so then I'd plant one square, and then 2 weeks later I'd plant the next square, and then plant the next square, and then I could start back over. And for me, yes, there was space open and left open in the garden, but that just helped me keep track of it, because that made sense to me. That's how I used it. And then we have the French intensive planting, which came out of France. They had a lot of gardens in the city, and this is how they packed plants in as tight as they could. The way of packing plants means that the plant itself mulches the soil, or shades the soil out so you don't have a lot of weeds in there. And this works really, really good for like a lot of herbs and smaller vegetables, lettuces, greens, things like that that take up a smaller foot space, and you're using them kind of thing, and they're small enough that you're not trying to reach over a 3-foot plant to get into something. You're reaching over things that are 6 to 18 inches max kind of thing. This one you stagger rows and you can put things in a lot tighter. I do this for like my lettuces and things like that. So isn't that just gorgeous? It's just all pretty. I do it also with my pepper plants. So my peppers are staggered, and we have a drip system in there. That's the black lines you can see, and every foot is an emitter on that. And the hoses are staggered, so if there's an emitter here and here, the next one is staggered, so the emitter's here. So I just plant at each emitter. Makes it great. I don't have to count. I don't have to measure. It's just wonderful. And then I have an emitter on every tomato or every pepper plant. And my pepper plants, they get 18 inches tall kind of thing. And they fit nicely within that spacing for that.
How do you prep your soil for pepper plants? So I tried growing peppers last year, and I haven't had my soil tested, but I know that the soil, the pH balance is off on my soil because my peppers didn't do well at all. And I was talking to Cal about it, and he was saying that there's something that you can add to the soil to help boost or help remedy the soil composition so that the peppers do better. Is there something I can put in the hole in the ground before I plant my peppers, or should I do a full treatment? Because I have the section of the garden where I'm planting my peppers laid out. I just have to do something to it. I do not think my peppers would do well unless I do remedy the soil.
Okay. So for the class, she's asking about growing peppers and the soil and how to treat that. So anything you do to increase the humus matter in the soil is good. And the more humus and organic matter in the soil will bring that soil back to having availability of all of your nutrient, because your soil is living, it's doing all the things it needs to do. If your soil pH is way off, you can test that to actually find out if it's way off. And that's as easy as getting the little pH strips kind of thing and doing that sort of thing. There's also pH meters. I think we might have one at our house. If you want to borrow it, you can. Stick it in the ground all over the place, see what it looks like. Compaction would be another thing that might
Better.
be
That was
issue for yours. Also road salt and all of the road stuff that may have affected it.
won't be as far enough away from the road for the road salt to not be too big a deal, because it is closer under like that tree.
Okay, so all of that, amending your soil and getting the life in it really well. Another thing is putting your peppers in when the soil is warm enough.
Right.
And so one thing is, if you have your whole soil all mulched, that keeps your soil cold. And so pulling that all back off and letting it warm up in the sun for a week before you put your plants in could also be helpful to get that soil just happy, because pepper plants hold grudges like nobody's business. They can be very grumpy. So if you make them upset in the beginning, they may not ever forgive you. So that could also be an issue too. And I know I have put my pepper plants in too soon, and they got mad at me. And so this picture, I think, might be late May, almost June, that I'm putting my plants in. And I just kept potting them up into a bigger pot. And so my pepper plants were still happy and warm and in my nice hot greenhouse before I got them in the ground. So that might also be an issue. But starting with your pH and adding organic matter is good. If you add a fertilizer to it, just something that's a long time releasing sort of idea, would also be good. If you put something directly in the hole just where that plant is, the plant won't spread out its roots as it needs to, kind of thing. Yeah, but
If you have a cool summer, you can also not get any fruit or very little.
yes, so if your summer is cool, which I think we had last year, we had a very cool spring. It rained a lot, it didn't get really warm. That will also affect your pepper plants because they won't set buds. And if it doesn't set a bud, then it's not, if it's not happy enough to set a bud, it's not going to. So a lot of people did have issues. Thank you for reminding me of that. A lot of people did have issues with some of that last spring because we had, I don't think we warmed up for a long, long time. And then we had a drought in the middle of spring. So it was a very odd weather. We always have, weather's always odd. But that could be an issue too. So yeah, there's always many, maybe this kind of things. It depends. So then to reiterate, here's the 3 different ways. There is no perfect way, there's no wrong way, and there's no absolutely always right way. It's whatever it is you need to do in your garden for what you want to grow and what makes it easy for you. They're just 3 different ways. And you might use one thing for one type of plant and something else for another type of plant. So, but that's 3 different ways you can grow things. Planting out the garden. So how to plant seeds. Read your seed packet. They have an amazing amount of information on there for you. Typically, the smaller the seed, the shallower you plant it. If it wants to be, unlike indoors where you're planting indoors and you are controlling all the things, outdoors it is more important to make sure that if it wants to be an inch down, you put it an inch down because it needs to have that amount of moisture, it needs it to be dark, it needs a bunch of different things that if you have it too close to the surface of the soil, it may dry out. So the surface of the soil in sun, so if you have dark uncovered soil in full sun, it can get over 100 degrees really easy in that first 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch of soil. And that's too hot and it'll burn out and it'll dry things out. So use my little PPs. I stick my finger in up until like almost my second knuckle, drop my pea in and then cover it all up. So that's how I do those. General rule of thumb is 2 to 4 times this diameter, but you also have the seed packet. So, cool story, I have never been successful with marigolds. Starting them inside, every once in a while outside one will pop up for me, but like inside I just could never get them to grow. Well, I finally read Botanical Interest Seeds Packet, which is like a book, you can open up the whole entire thing, and I'm like, oh, it's surface soil because it needs sunlight. And I did it this year, and they started. I was so excited. Oh my God, I have marigolds. It's the easiest plant in the world to grow. I could not grow it. All right, so once they are up, then I push the mulch back. So over the area to make sure that it stays mulch. Usually I let it kind of keep the mulch really fine and thin until they get up a little bit. But put it back in once they're up. Make sure you water. If you don't water, they'll be sad. We've gone like a week without rain, so I've got to go out and water my peas this morning. All right, how to plant potted plants. So this is, it doesn't matter if you get them from the store, if you get them from your friend, if you grew them yourself. It does not matter how you got a plant. The fact you have a plant, good job. Here we go. I have started plants in every sort of container you can imagine. As long as it has a hole, it is fair game to start a plant. So these little, they're little peat pot type things. I have found they are wonderful for starting plants. They hold your soil. They real obvious when they need to be watered. But our soil is not warm enough early enough in the year for that little thing to break down for the roots to get out easily. And so I tend to rip it off and then I just leave it in the garden for mulch and it disintegrates by the end of the year. These are cantaloupe seeds, and generally the common instruction is you have to plant those by seed because they do not like to be messed with, and if you mess with their roots, they get mad at you and die. I have found that if you just don't let it know that it got messed with, it's fine. So I very carefully tear the peat pot off. So these, I don't flip them upside down. I'm not squishing the plastic to get them out. I have them in a little peat pot, which I very carefully peel off, and that little plant, he just sees sun for a minute or two, and then he goes in the ground. I don't like break up the root ball. I don't do any of that. I just get him in the ground. And at this point, you can see that there is beautiful white roots, which is what you want. Those are great. They are just breaking the edge of the circle of the pot, so he's not overgrown. There's not tons of things going round and round. So he's going to go into the soil and just not know anything happened to him, and then he'll be fine. So they usually are happy, and they do just fine. You just can't mess with them too badly. So I believe the melons are like that. Sunflowers can be like that a little bit. They always say like radishes and carrots, and beets are also really grumpy if you mess with their roots because that's what they're growing. Well, if you just make sure you put the carrots straight again when you put them back in the ground. You know, if you do dig up a beet, don't mess with that root too much. Make sure you're gentle with it when you put it back in the ground. And I have been able to transplant and remove things. Is it happy if I had just left it be? Maybe, maybe not. But if you had two beets like this on each other, they're going to be much happier separated than if you had to kill one. So that's one thing with the little peat pot that I have learned. Put your more delicate things in there, and then you can very carefully take it off. If you buy a plant in a peat pot like this, go ahead and peel it off, or at least peel off the base of it, so then that way the roots can get out and not have to be fighting that. Because depending on the state of decay, it may or may not be decayed enough for it to let them out of the pot jail. Okay, this little guy, he was in my paper pot. You can kind of see one down there. Peeled that off. His roots are white. They are ready to go. I did rough this one up just a touch, and then he's going in the ground. He doesn't care. He's like, I just need more space.
A strawberry?
I was trying to figure that out. I think it is a strawberry. I think that is my alpine strawberries I started from seed 2 years ago. Okay, this is one of my cabbages. It's a purple acres cabbage. So he was in a 4-inch pot. And so you can see the bottom of his are kind of, he's been in there a little bit longer. So I'm going to rough him up and put him in. And you can see his neck's a little long. So like some of the brassicas, some of the lettuces, their necks get a little wobbly. And so when I plant them, I tuck them in a little bit deeper so that brack of the leaves coming up is at the top of the soil. That makes them a little like not so floppy, and they kind of stand up a little better. I personally have not found anything like doesn't put them back. They don't get mad about it. Some things do get mad if you plant them too deep, like strawberries. You plant them too deep and their crown is too deep, they will rot because they want to have that crown be real high. These, not so much. You can also see that I did not pull a dandelion out of my garden. He's mulched right in there with the rest of them. Okay, and then you can see I've got him on that drip line. He's got mulch all the way around him. He's planted in and he's happy. This particular mulch is ornamental grass, like the dried ornamental grass. Best mulch ever. I love that stuff. It was light, it was fluffy. Unlike leaves, it didn't compact, but yeah. Okay, any questions about those, like all those plants? Okay, now we're going on to tomatoes. So I am like so piggy full there. I got my tomatoes. These guys were in a 4-inch deep, 3-inch tall well pot. Worked really good for those. I had a lot that year. And then these are my 4-inch pots. So I really like potting my tomatoes up and making sure they never get root bound, because then they like free reign. But it makes this great big tall tomato. I don't want a giant tomato like that. So here's, this is actually even a bigger pot. This is a 5 by 5 pot. I'm gonna break that root ball up, kind of scrunch them all up. And then this is how I plant tomatoes. So you can sink a tomato down in the ground as deep as you want. He'll be fine. The only thing is the deeper you go in the ground, the colder the soil is. If the soil is cold, the tomato's like, and he doesn't want to grow. So you trick them and you plant them sideways, because the top 6 inches of your soil is a bit warmer, right? So you kind of, I dig this like hole like this a little bit, and I lay him down here, kind of stack him, and then I gently bend his neck and have a little stake there so that he looks like this. I have cut his height in half and got him in there. Everything that's in the ground, his stem will grow roots, and so it'll actually grow more roots. He's going to be a lot more sturdy and stable because he's a lot shorter. He's going to be in warmer soil, and this often helps them just like get more root system in, so that when they do get this giant plant, they've got, you know, another 6 inches of root pack that he can make. And so I have, I usually have a little, I don't even know why, how or I got them, but it's this little stake, little metal stake that I put in next to it, and I kind of lean him on that stake to help him go up. Because otherwise, if I just lay him sideways, he's going to grow sideways, and then his branches will grow up, and you will have a forest of a tomato and not a tomato plant, right? So if I do that, and then sometimes you have to snap off the lower leaves on it, so it's just stem underground. That's how I grow a tomato. And then stake everything. Like if you think it's going to be floppy, stake it. And if you plant it, and then you put your cages, stakes, whatever around it right away. Because if you come back later, you might be putting your stake through roots mass or root system or a watering line or whatever, because you don't know where everything is at that point. And so we stake all the tomatoes, of course. Timothy does this master, we have all these huge cages, like we got the big giant cages, and then he ties them all together. So like all 20 cages are all tied together. So it just creates this massive structure that they all grow in. We stake our pepper plants. I put the little tomato cages that you laugh at, because there's no way that's gonna hold a tomato. They're just, the little ones. We put those around all our pepper plants, so that way when a pepper gets heavy with peppers, you can kind of prop it on the cage. I stake anything I think is going to fall over or something that needs help. If you have that ready and prepared to go, that really helps. Peony rings, I don't know if you've ever seen, it's a ring, and it has 3 prongs in it, and it kind of hooks together. So what it does is it holds your peony bush up. Those are great. There's also ones that are grates. So it's a circle, it looks like a grate, and then it has 3 stakes that go around it. Those are great too, like if you have something that has lots of fronds and you want to hold that together. All of those things, if you get it on even while your plant's just this big, if you get that on ahead of time, then you're not trying to force it onto a plant that needs it. You have given it to the plant before it needs it, and it'll grow through much easier. It's easier to fiddle a tomato branch back into the cage than it is trying to fit a cage over a 4-foot tomato plant that has gone wild. So have a plan for that and have that ready to go before you ever need it, and then you will be it'll be easier, let's say that. Okay, plant protection is another thing that you can start out planting. So row covers, this is called reme cloth. Very lightweight, air passes through, sunlight gets a little bit diminished, but it can pass through. It says water can pass through. I'm assuming that's true, but I haven't ever really tested it, because we have all of our drip lines underneath of it, and so it's still getting watered. I'm not relying on the rain to water where I'm at. So I don't know about that part as much. But this is what we do for some of our brassicas and like cabbage. Have you ever gotten a cabbage and you look in and there's like all these worms around, cabbage worms, and you're just like, I can't eat this. I do not want that kind of protein in my salad. So this is one of the things that you can do to get them past that point. You could do this with squash to avoid the squash vine borer, to get them past that stage where it's really bad. Any of your greens, if you're trying to keep aphids off, all of that will protect them from this. So what this is a cattle fence grate thing that fits between the walls of my thing. So jam it in one side, bent it, jammed it in on the other side, and then we just covered it up, and then a bunch of clothespins holds it all together. So it's not fancy or anything like that. And then when we don't need it anymore, you just pull the whole thing off. This will protect you from cabbage whites, cabbage lopers, aphids, a lot of that stuff. The only issue, we did this once in the community garden, and we trapped about 85 cabbage whites inside, and we were just like, what? And cabbage whites pupate and overwinter in the ground. They're those little brown pupas that you find. And we had inadvertently trapped a whole bunch of we planted brassicas on top of where brassicas had been the year before, is what happened. And so we trapped all of these butterflies. They broke hibernation and they pupated, and they was all inside the thing. We're like, okay, this is another reason why you rotate. Because we had to then go in, let out all the butterflies, and put it back down. But, so yeah, if you ever find a little brown, it's about an inch long, it's brown, it has, like, you can see the wings and little segments of the abdomen, that is a cabbage white. Usually it's a cabbage white pupa. And so I'm like, Timothy said I was rather murderous for liking butterflies as much as I do towards cabbage whites. I saw one this morning and I was like, die! Yeah. This is another thing. This is called a cutworm, and he's ugly. He just looks like he needs to not be in the world anymore.
Chickens like them.
What's that?
My chickens like them.
Yeah. They live about a half inch in the surface of the soil. You usually can't see them because they blend in so well. They are very ugly, and they generally curl in this little C shape. If you have planted your plants and you find that somebody has gone and lumberjacked them, it's usually this little cutworm. And they'll just take a single bite out of the stem and then leave, which is really annoying. Like, if you're going to kill it, at least eat it, you know? And so you'll find your plant either completely cut off and laying flat, or like a huge chomp out of it and it's laying flat. It's a cutworm, and he will go down the line and just take out 2 or 3 every single night if you've got them in a line. And so if you find a plant that's like that, you dig around in the soil up to about 6 inches out either direction, and you will generally find the cutworm. And then you will make him not be anymore. But one of the things that we did to help protect from that is, these are little yogurt cups. We cut out the bottom. It's got a little thing, and we put the plant, when we plant the plant, make sure there's not a cutworm in the circle. Stick this down into the soil about a half an inch, and this will keep the cutworms from getting to your plant. And then once your plant gets about pencil size or bigger, they no longer mess with them. You can just pop it off and then take it away. So this is a little yogurt cup. You could use anything, or a toilet paper roll. Cut this in half, do the same thing to it, and that will protect your plants. This will just decompose into your garden. This you'd have to pull out, and I have stacks of them that I put out every year. So yes, he should die. Okay, and then encouragement. So this is a tomato plant. I got a super awful late start one year. And I'm not sure, like, this was the year I had the trouble with the heat mat. I cooked all my seeds because the heat mat was too hot. And so I was late. So I'm putting a probably 3-inch tall tomato plant in the ground because that's what I had. And he grew and we got tomatoes. It took an extra month to get them, but we still got tomatoes. And so you're not going to do everything perfectly. Some things might die. It may not work. It'll be okay. Just try, you know. And I did purchase some from the store, from other places, but some of the tomatoes I plant, I can't get from the store or from the farmer's market because they're, you know, the fancy heirloom ones that we really like. And so I wanted my yellow tomatoes, so I planted a 2-inch yellow tomato, and I still got it. Okay? All right. So all of that was the fun stuff. Planting plants, putting them all in, that's all fun. You're all excited. You're like, woohoo! Everything looks pretty because you've weeded and then you mulch. It's great, right? Mid-August, you're like, what happened? And every year it feels like I'm always running behind. I'm never caught up. I'm never on top of it. And I don't know, does anybody else ever feel that way or is it just me?
Always.
Okay. So for being an event organizer and a person who organizes things, I feel like I'm like not organized person ever. And so I'm always reading books, I'm watching classes on YouTube, I'm taking classes. And so all of these different classes I've taken have kind of all pointed to a few key things. And then there was an amazing garden class that I took, and it focused specifically on scheduling. Like, how do you schedule? How do you keep up? How do you treat your garden as if it was a job? Because at this point in our lives, most of us can go to the grocery store or the farmer's market and get whatever it is we need and go home, right? This is not we don't eat tonight if we didn't grow something, right? But we have that blessing. But that blessing also comes with, it's not as huge a priority for us as it might have been 200 years ago for people to need to grow their food. And so there's a blessing and a curse with that. So if I don't get my tomato plants weeded, yeah. But if I absolutely need to have so many tomatoes to get me through the winter and into next, spring, then it turns into a different thing. So her idea was that treat this as if it was a job and schedule it as if it was a job. It's appointments. And then focus on creating that scenario. And so it's not a, oh, shame, I've got to go do a thing. It's, okay, this is a thing I'm doing. Let's go do it. And then you have a plan, you have things scheduled, you can walk through your garden in a way that's successful. And so, failing to plan is planning to fail. It's like such a good quote, and it's pretty true. At least for me, it's very true. If I don't have a plan, my brain just does not have anything to hang on to and follow through with. And so this is being kind to myself. If I plan something, it's being kind to me. Do I want to be kind to other people? Yes. Am I a person? Yes. Therefore, I should be kind to myself too. So this is this is that encouragement. So one thing is figure out your chore list for you. It might be different. If you have a container garden, your chore list might consist of 6 things. If you have 3 acres, your chore list will consist of a whole lot different, more things, right? So figure out what all needs to be done and get it on paper. So it's not like sitting in your head going, don't forget. And it's like, nope, I've got a plan. I know I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it here. I'm not going to forget to do it because I know what it is I need to do. So create that list. And that was a glorious day in the garden where Timothy brought in all that food and laid it on the counter. And I was like, oh, it's pretty. So we must take a picture. This is what I came up with. Plant, water, weed, fix things, harvest, process the produce, and eat it. Those are my things I need to do. And way back at the beginning, I had some handouts, and one of the things on the handout was remember your why. You created this why. Why are you doing this gardening? Because we can go to the grocery store. Because we can, go to the farmer's market. What is my why for growing this and doing all this work and energy to do this thing? Remember that. That is why you're doing it. So it doesn't turn into, I got a weed. It's no, this is something I want to do because it's going to give me this thing that my why is connected with, right?
Food during famine.
Say that?
Food during famine.
Food during famine, because you have to practice,
That's right.
Another why might be, a friend of mine just told me that Meyer is now spraying all their loose produce, not packaged stuff, of course, with some kind of, she wasn't sure what it was. I said, you mean like a fungicide?
appeal.
I don't know what it is. It's just to make the produce not rot
Ah.
on the shelf.
So what they're spraying over the
Yeah.
produce isn't just water anymore.
Meh.
It's I forget what it is, but I saw it too this week.
She called somebody at Myers to see if that was for real, and they said yes. And so then she sent some emails to higher up, said Meyer that I'm not happy about this. Why are you doing this? They have not responded, of course.
Okay. Yeah, that's a hard thing, because,
So that might be a bigger why for a lot of people. I don't want that stuff on my food.
yeah,
And if Meyer's doing it, Family Fare will eventually do it.
yeah. Throwing away food is one of the highest costs that grocery stores have, the fresh produce. I think they actually lose money on that as opposed to their boxed and canned and packaged things that have much longer shelf life. And so I understand why they would want to do that, but I also understand that we don't want to eat that. And so, yeah, that's another why. So I don't want to eat things that have things on them that I don't know what it is. I want to know what kind of soil it grew in. I want to know what got sprayed on it. I want to know what the quality of it is. I want to eat a yellow tomato because they are super yummy. And, so what is your why? And remember that. So that'll help motivate you. Those are good whys. Do you have a why? What's your why?
My why is, because I can seem simple, but it's to the same point of there is, for me, healing when I get my hand in the dirt. And if I can put my hands in the dirt, heal myself and feed my family. Because on the days when I don't play with dirt or I'm in the garden or around plants, there's a difference in me that I can tell. It's a disconnect. And to be able to connect to the earth under my feet is a blessing.
Yes.
That not everyone wants or can have, and to capitalize on it to not capitalize on it feels like a great loss.
Yeah. That is a really good why. I walked around in my garden in bare feet this morning and I was just like, this is awesome.
And then drip lines today, so we've got our lines where we're going to plant our corn, and I got peas and onions and leeks in the ground last week.
Nice.
So I found that little thing on the internet
Okay.
about what they're spraying on the water, and it's a product called Produce Max that has been FDA approved for use on fresh produce. Grocery stores use it for washing and crisping fresh fruits and vegetables, misting the produce regularly, and soaking fresh cut produce before packaging. It is designed to be a sterilizer. This means that all produce at the grocery store, even organic, is literally covered and potentially soaked in chlorine. It's called.
So it's in packaged produce too.
Not it. Well, I don't know about that.
Before they package it, they spray it.
I think at the grocery stores, though, some of them put it in a bag for you.
So I'm wondering if it'd be interesting, Earthbound is where I get my organic lettuce box from, if
Right.
they do it or if it's already a sealed thing and stuff. So that, and then also a peel is
Yeah.
another thing that's coming out that you can't tell. And so, yeah, I love your why. Your why is great. I like your why. Your whys are also great. We've been given responsibility for this vehicle we have to do all of our stuff in, and so we got to put good fuel in and do what we can to keep it running, right? The older I get, the more I'm like, it's hard to keep running. So yes, remember your why. Write it down if you have to. I should put it down on my chalkboard in my greenhouse. That'd be good. Okay? Make your lists. I love lists. I have my book has always got lists. I've got notebooks with lists. I'm really good at making lists. Doing lists, yeah, but I'm really good at making lists. But make a list of all the things. Pick 1 or 2 or 3 and focus on finishing those things and before moving on to the next thing. So I don't think I have ADHD. I am hyper and I do flip from thing to thing, so I don't know. But if I go outside with no plan, I will diddly-daddly around for 3 hours and get nothing accomplished that has any completion to it. I weeded over there, I took pictures of those 85 flowers, I looked at this, I followed the bee around, I looked at the butterfly, I killed 3, cabbage flippers, but I didn't really do anything, right? But if I go and make my list, okay, I need to plant my peas, I need to clean out beds 1 and 2, and I need to take out all the trees that have grown in my bed since last fall, and I make that my goal, I will be much more likely to accomplish something. And if I set up those lists, one of the suggestions that this lady had was every morning, go out in your yard and just look at your yard and look at everything, enjoy it, and make lists of what you need to do. And then Monday you're going to just tidy things. You are going to weed something if it needs to be weeded. You're going to fix something that needs to be fixed. Tuesday, you're going to go out and you're going to harvest. And then you're going to bring it inside and do something with it. So like if you harvest all of your greens early in the morning, you are putting them into a bucket of cold water to chill, and then you're going to go inside and you're going to spin them all and process them all and put them into their tubs. Or we're going to harvest all of the Swiss chard and we're going to boil it and then we're going to put it in bags and then we're going to, but you will have made enough time to do that process. Because a lot of times I'll go out and be like, we just harvested a whole bunch of Swiss chard. Oh no, I gotta go do something else now. And I have this huge sink full of Swiss chard that is losing nutrient, is wilting, whatever, because I didn't process the amount of time I needed to take to do that thing. So that's Tuesday maybe. Wednesday is maybe just like, it's for me, my busy day. I'm just gonna be like, I'm gonna look at the garden and smile. Thursday maybe is another processing, harvesting day. Friday is we're getting ready for Sabbath and we're getting all the things all tidied and stuff like that. Sundays are big chore days. So Sunday is like, okay, we're going to put in a garden. We're going to move a thing. We're going to create a thing because we got a bigger space of time. And so by organizing it and making lists, I will get through my garden well and check things off so then it's not like, I've missed 3 weeks. Kind of thing. That for me works for planting seeds too, is on a certain day. I'm like, okay, all the seeds, whether or not they're supposed to be planted 2 days ago or in 3 days, they're all getting planted today because the seed doesn't know that much about timing. And that way it helps me keep up with that too. Set appointments. So this is make a job. I will show up and move a mountain for somebody else. And I'm sure you guys, I've seen you do it for other people too. So-and-so needs help. Okay, here we go. We're going to get there. We're going to get this thing done. We're going to make the stew and can it. We're going to show up and weed. We're going to do whatever needs to happen. And for other people, sometimes that feels easier to do than to hold an appointment for yourself, to bless yourself. And so if you make it a job, it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with, okay, I need to do this because I need to be in the dirt and this helps me. I need to do this because we want to eat this. I need to do this because this is what I've committed to do. And from 2 to 4 on today, this is what we're doing. It's scheduled just like my job is scheduled, just like an appointment is scheduled. It's the thing on my calendar that I am going to do, and I've made space for it and prioritized it. And that will also help, because if it's the last thing on the list to do every day, it will not get done because you're tired, because you just want to sit down, do all the other things. And so that made a lot of sense to me, to make appointments to do something. I'm going to make an appointment to free Swiss chard. I really appreciate having frozen Swiss chard all winter. I appreciate being able to put it in my smoothies. I appreciate being able to cook it and make it with eggs. Like all the different things I do with Swiss chard. To make that appointment to go get it makes sense for me. Now some of you might be like, just do it. I'm happy for you. That doesn't work for me so well. Break it up into smaller tasks. So instead of having to weed all 11 beds now, I just need to weed 2. Tomorrow I'll weed another one. Next day I'll weed another one. You know, break it up into smaller tasks. Instead of planting all 600 varieties of whatever I'm growing this year, plant 30. Do this, plant that. Breaking it up into smaller tasks. Because overwhelm is really real, and for me, when I get overwhelmed, I sit there and go, I can't do anything, instead of just trying to do one thing, right? And so, this is where you get to be creative. Or invite people over, because I'm like, I need a body double. Help me. And then the last thing is like, just enjoy the journey. When this lady was giving this class, one of the things she mentioned was, and several other garden people were like, go out and just enjoy your garden. Because how many times is there seeding in the garden and the gardener never ever sits down in the seeding, because you go out and you're like, oh, there's a weed, oh, and you never just sit and enjoy the flowers. You never enjoy the space, or just like, wow, it is a beautiful sunrise today. Not that I see very many sunrises. It's a beautiful sunset today. It's, look, that's blooming. Oh, look, that's doing super awesome. Oh, look. And just be grateful and amazed at the awe of creation, right? And so enjoying your garden, even if it's not perfect, is something that I'm going to try to challenge myself to. So this is why I take 85,000 pictures of flowers. Because I'm like, oh, it's a flower, take a picture. But that was something that also, if you can bring our joy up, being in the garden, it doesn't turn into the dreary, you know, little kids complain about like having to weed as a kid, you know, and all they remember is the tedium of gotta get all the weeds out, it's hot, it's sticky, this isn't any fun, I'm all by myself. And instead, if we can make this something that is a joy, is something, that doesn't mean it's not going to be work. Doesn't mean that sometimes you're not out there at 3 o'clock when it is blazing hot and you like, why did I not get this done earlier? But just to find a way to enjoy it, do it when it works best to be able to enjoy it. You know, if that's earlier morning or later evening or whatever, making it fun is a wonderful thing. And then I just like this little dude. I thought he was cute. So one thing that's really helpful for me is I have a garden notebook, and I forgot it. I was going to bring it. And have it with all the notes, the schedules, all the things you need to know, like when to plant things, however you do that. So it makes it easy. Makes it easy for you to write down things. Makes it easy for you to keep track of information, so you're not like, what was that tomato? I don't know. Anything that takes away the can't put your finger on information thing or what to do makes life harder. So if you keep it all in one spot, that really helps. And so I have a big binder. Get a calendar and make it the garden calendar where you can scribble all over it. Hey, the peas came up today, and just write it on the calendar. If it's not something that's easy for you to do in an app or something like that, but it just, then you can flip back through that calendar throughout the year and say, oh, when did I do that thing last year? Oh, that's when I did it. Or the peas came up, so I must have done it like, you know, a week earlier, kind of thing. And you can keep that calendar from year to year. Get plant lists for when to grow things. So like I have, this one came from my library with their seed thing. And so on it, it has like just this basic list of when to grow things and stuff like that. And then on the other side, it has it in a different form where it shows like when to harvest and grow things. So it's a really easy way to kind of see things. It has the website on there if you're interested, or if we want to make a couple copies of it, we could do that too. But yeah, so anything that makes your life easier, information-wise, or anything, keep it together in a book, and that will help you be successful down the road. Because everything that makes it easier makes it better. Okay? And then encouragement for when you fail, because we're going to fail. We're going to kill something. It's not going to work. You're going to be like, you worked last year. Why aren't you working this year? Why can't I grow a pepper? I just want to grow a pepper. Why can't I grow marigold seeds? It's a process. We have found that we did amazing at something one year, and the next year we couldn't do it to save our lives. We're like, what happened? We did everything the same. And so every year something does amazing, something doesn't. Every year something is meh. Sometimes the weather's fault, sometimes it's our fault we didn't do something right, or sometimes it's just chance and happenstance, you know? Or the deer came through and ate everything down to the ground. I mean, it just depends on different things. And so if I based my value on how awesome I do on some things, you can't. It's just, you're never going to arrive, and that's okay. And I have been known to get very frustrated. I'm like, I'm putting this beautiful garden, it's glorious. 3 years later, if I have not maintained that space, it's like worse than when we started. I'm like, why can't you just still the same? Because we can't. Everything grows, everything changes, everything matures, and we want that, right? We don't want to stay stagnant. And so our garden is the same thing. If we're not changing and moving and doing something, then we're not going to have a very good garden, or turn it into a sermon, good spiritual life, or heart, or maturity, right? And so the good thing though is I am still learning things, and I will never be bored, because I can always learn something that I don't know. Like marigold seeds need to be germinated on the top of the soil, which means I need to spritz them 2 or 3 times a day to make sure they stay damp enough. But I got marigold babies now. So that's good. And this is one thing that, like, I am good at growing greens. That is Swiss chard in my arms. It's great. That turned into like 5 or 6 bags this size when you get done, blanching it. And that's my lettuce. And so I can do pretty good at greens. They're happy in my sand. They grow well. It's all right. I cannot grow a carrot to save my life. I have sand. I should be able to grow a carrot. I can't get the things to germinate. So I don't grow carrots. I don't even try anymore. I just go buy them from somebody else who does amazing at growing carrots, and that's okay. I'm putting my energy towards the things that I want. I want flowers, I want tomatoes, and I want greens. And everything else is kind of, bonus. But those are the things I'm good at. Those are the things I really like and enjoy doing. And so if I focus more on that, then instead of the carrots I don't seem to ever do very successful with, or some of those other things, or things I don't like to eat. Like, I don't really care for radishes. They're too hot for me. He likes them. So I will grow 5 radishes. That makes him happy. Then you grow another 5 radishes. And that way we're not, I don't have 87 radishes that I don't know what to do with, which we did one time. I gave them away to everybody. So find what you're good at, focus on that, start with that, and then pick your hard. Like, it doesn't all have to be hard. You can pick the thing that's hard and then learn and focus on that. But don't make that the only thing of value for you. Make sure you got your stuff that you're happy with. So that's the end of this class. I thought to leave some room for just questions, discussion, that sort of thing. Yes?
Where's a really good place to buy your seeds?
I buy my seeds from High Mowing. I have found High Mowing to be really good quality. Their seeds are they're what they say they are. They also do a really good job of being farmer owned. So they are a co-op of owners that work together. I really appreciate them. Baker Creek is another place I buy seeds from. Everyone seems to buy seeds from them. They're like a giant in the organic industry. I have not always had a lot of success with some of their seeds, specifically in the beginning when they were still working out kinks of getting bigger. But they have a lot of really cool stuff. Then there's Seed Savers, Southern Exposure, Vermont Seed Company.
How about locally, anything?
Locally,
DeBrien's?
so DeBrien's sells seeds. Who grew those seeds? I'm not sure, and I don't know how they were grown. And so the reason for me that I try to buy a seed grown a specific way is because if the parent plants were grown in a certain way, that seed is going to be used to that sort of condition. So if they were grown in a typical monocrop thing where they're in rows, they're being sprayed with fertilizers, pesticides, because they need to keep that plant alive to get a pollination out of it. They're grown a lot longer than for food, which means that it has to be in the ground a lot longer. All of those things is what those plants are used to. And so that seeds of that has been predisposed to be grown in that manner. This is also where the idea of land race comes from. So I have that red Russian kale seed that I brought and shared with you. It's a seed that I have grown and harvested seed from my garden for I think 6 or 7 years now. That seed makes a plant that overwinters in my yard, comes up the following spring, and it's used to being cold, living through the winter, giving me greens in the early spring, and then setting seed for me. It's a hardy kale. It comes back and lives through winter. I have created a compo kale who's used to doing that. Now, if I had lived 200 miles south of here and I did that same thing, that particular kale would probably be a little bit more heat hardy. It wouldn't worry about being able to live through a cold, wet winter. It would be more concerned about too hot or a different season. It's going to create a different kind of kale, because what survives and does what I want it to do, I'm going to harvest that seed and it's going to create that. And so your seed has this genetic line that is predisposed towards certain characteristics. And when you purchase seed from, say, Vermont Seed Catalog Company, I know I'm getting seed that has grown in sort of the same place that mine is. If I get my seed from High Mowing, which is also further north, I know that seed has been grown in the same sort of conditions I have. If I'm getting my seed from Baker Creek and they list it and they say, oh, this seed has been given to us by somebody who lives in Missouri, I know that seed is used to hot, humid summers, a longer growing season, and those factors may affect how well it does way up north, where we don't get to 90 very often, right? We're humid, but we don't hit those heat indexes that they might, and so that seed might perform differently for me. And so that kind of goes into some of the processes I have about where I purchase seed and why I purchase seed. That being said, I have been known to pick up the 19-cent pack of seed on Menard's shelf on sale for 10 cents, because it's alyssum. Alyssum grows everywhere, and I'm not eating it. And so some of that affects where I get seed. If you can be picky, I would totally be picky. Put your money towards supporting people who are also trying to do a good job. But if someone hands you seed, if you're at Myers and you just grab it, grow something is the bigger thing. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Is it possible to grow, so let's say you pick up your lovely 10-cent packet of seeds from Menards because it's there and you can, and you grow it and it does fairly decent, it throws off some seeds, you harvest those seeds, you plant them the next year. Is it possible for the seeds in succession throughout the years to acclimatize even more specifically to your terrain and to what, like the heat and whatnot?
Yes.
So that if the plant that I grew this year grew okay, and I keep harvesting those seeds over, say, the next 5 years, the plants that I grow on the 5th year will just do amazing because those seeds have been more acclimatized to my environment. Is that possible? Does it?
It is possible. The issue that you have to remember is that you have to select for what you want. So we'll go with the alyssum, okay? So alyssum typically grows anywhere, it self-seeds, it does all the things, right? So say I got the packet of seed from Menards, because that's where all my alyssum is from right now. Well, it was. I got some new one. And it grew further south, and it's used to super hot, but really, like, they got lots of water, right? It gets put into my yard. And I am probably not going to harvest alyssum seed because it is fine as all get out. It's just going to be like live and survive. And so it may do that very thing on its own. It's going to grow and it's going to throw its seed out. And the next year, the stuff that makes it is going to be a little bit tougher, used to my spot. It's going to throw seed. The next year it makes it, it's going to be a little bit better. And eventually, within it's usually about 7 years for you to have something that's a stable seed genome. It's going to be Shannon's alyssum that can live on a sand dune, if it's possible. And it'll be in the cracks underneath the logs. It'll have enough moisture. But it will create its own land race kind of idea. Now, if you were going to do this deliberately, so the kale that I grow is red Russian Jack. It is a kale from northern Russia area, not Siberia, because nothing grows in Siberia except for moss and reindeer. But where it does grow things, it's used to cold. Well, all the seed that I'm collecting, because kale is a biennial, it's only the kale that made it through winter. And for me, I want kale that makes it through winter because I like going out and picking kale in the spring before my babies are big enough to go out, right? That, for me, that's a great thing. So they are getting naturally selected because they made it. They made it through winter and they set seed because it's a biennial. It's doing its culling for me more, right? But if you are taking a annual that sets its seed in the same season, so this is a really good example of a cherry tomato that is an F1. It's a hybrid. Really great cherry. It's really sweet, small, yay, sun gold F1. I want that sun gold F1. Well, one of my friends actually did this. They took that F1 sun gold, they planted it out, they harvested seed, and then they had to plant that back out and select for what they wanted because they have two parents make this guy. He's a hybrid. But the seeds of that hybrid could be any combination of the two parents. Some of them will be just like the F1 guy. But the next generation is like when you make a golden doodle. Not all of them look the same, right? Like some of them are like, I do not know what that is. Some of them are perfection and they cost lots of money. Some of them just look, they're wrong. They just get all the wrong things, right? It's that same idea. And so the idea is what they do is they take 1,000 seeds, plant them all out, see what comes up, and they say, oh, only about maybe 5 to 10% of this is actually what we want. Take that, get seeds from that, plant another 1,000 out. Ooh, we made it up to 20%. Woohoo! Grab that 20%, throw all of that out. Just do that, and so you keep doing that over and over again until it takes about 7 years to get a stable genome where it's no longer that F1. It is a now stable, open pollinated seed, and not all of them can get done in 7 years. Some of them take longer. But that's a lot of work, and that's a lot of selection, and that's a lot of plants. I think the minimum is like 100 to actually, like, you plant 100, get this, plant 100, get this, plant, and by the time you get up there, you've got a better plant. Not most average homeowners have the capability and space to do that sort of thing. If you could have the Heavenly Father go, that seed, and that one, that'd be cool. But we don't usually have that. But that's how you can make it an official thing. For an open pollinated plant, which is what a lot of us deal with, they're not a hybrid, you can create that landrace a little bit easier because you're dealing with a plant that's genetically stable. You're just sort of selecting, wow, this, so my purple zinnias, they're all the same stable plant. But one of my purple zinnias did a double stack, and I thought that was super sweet. So I saved all the seeds from that one because it expressed a unique flaw, if you want to say it that way, in its genome that it did this thing. So I planted a bunch of those, and I had 2 that had that same cool double stack. So if I want to keep working on that, I could and maybe eventually get to that thing. It's a purple zinnia. I don't care. We're planting purple zinnias, so I plant all the seeds, right? But they're all pollinating each other and crossing back and forth and stuff like that. But if I really wanted to make sure, I would only be caping from the ones that double stacked. And the next year I'd only plant those, and I'd probably get a mix, grab from the double stack, and I would eventually create something. And so open pollinate is much easier to create that idea of a landrace. But it all different things. Sometimes people have created landraces just simply because they have grown it, their grandma grew it, and it's been passed down with a story. And that's where heirloom comes in. It's a seed with a story. It's not just an open pollinated. It's Grandpa Otto's blue morning glory, right? Grandpa Ott's, I think it's actually purple. I think it's a purple morning glory. That is a morning glory with a story. It has been grown in the same area. Its flower is stable, and it spreads everywhere. We have too much of it. So, yeah.
Do you store your seed in brown bags? Like that's usually how when I've harvested seeds in the past, just do like little brown paper bags.
I typically store my seed. Let's see if I'm going to close out of this. Whoa, okay, that does not work.
Escape.
Thank you. I store my seed in. My mouse is not.
It's up on the top screen, so pull it down.
Okay, so let's see. So my seed, if it has a paper package that it comes in, I keep it in there. But then I put that inside of a Ziploc baggie with a desiccant. And then I squish all the air out, seal it. And then I will often store like all of my cherry tomatoes together. So I have cherry tomatoes A through L in one baggie, all stored alphabetically, desiccant in there, flat, and then stored vertically in my little, I was trying to find a picture of my little box that I stored it all in. That stays in my basement where the temperature is consistently around 60 to 65. All the sides are covered, so it's dark in there. So it's not only got the paper, it's also got the sealing for moisture. If I'm collecting seed, a lot of that, it will go into a Ziploc baggie, desiccant, label, label, all the information, as much information as I can about it, like who I got it from, what year it was harvested, what it looks like, what color it is, this is the harvested of my Kellogg's breakfast tomato. Originally that seed came from Baker Creek. So that way I have my storyline of where it came from. I've gotten stuff from Gene Mackey, got his thing all on there, all the information, where it was, done, all of that kind of stuff. And then that gets put in there, but because the walls are dark, I'm trying to keep it dark and cool and stable. There's people that have all fancy boxes. There is people that put it into like little cute seed trays. I have way too many seeds to fit in a little box. Like I just have a 3 tub thing. Maybe it's in my newest one. I have 54 bins of unsorted pictures. See if I can find it real fast. I don't think I can. I would have to search for a minute. Anyway, it's one of those plastic Sterilite 3 drawers. It has little wheels on it. And then I just use actually use the old calendar that I liked all the pictures on it and use it for around it.
Do you have any tips on, things to mark your plants that last a long time and are effective
Okay, so in the garden,
in the garden?
okay, so I have used clothespins on my tomatoes. So I painted all my clothespins white. I took them all apart, painted them all. And then I write on the clothespin what kind of tomato it is, and then I clip it to the tomato cage. So that's one thing that's worked pretty well for me. I have gotten like these little metal this little metal thing, and you can mark on it, and it embeds it into the sign, into the copper or the metal. I've done that. Those are a bit fancier. Those I use for things I'm going to do over and over and over and over again, because you can't get it out once you write on it. I have made incredibly detailed maps where I write what everything is when I plant it in. Okay, not happening. Another thing you can do is get the plastic blinds. You've seen that from
Plastic blinds, really?
Oh, yeah.
that kind of thing.
Okay.
Those are UV protected plastic, so it doesn't break down. Get the white ones, or you can get the black ones, and then use a Sharpie or a wax pencil and write on that, and then you tuck it into the ground next to the plant, and then you
I like
can
that.
kind of pull it out. Like if you go to Restore and ask them to save like broken blinds that come in, you can put it on Facebook. Hey, anybody have broken blinds? I want your slats, kind of thing. Another thing you can do is take yogurt containers or the plastic packaging that comes around, like clamshells, that kind of stuff. Cut that into whatever size you want. Write on that with a Sharpie. That will usually get you through a season. The Sharpie will come off eventually if it's in the sun. Sometimes if you dig your tag down into the soil where you can just see the top edge and write down further so it's under the ground will protect it from the sun, and then you just pull it out if you need to and stick it back in. Otherwise it gets really brittle and breaks, kind of thing. So that's what I typically do, is I stick any tag I do get, like so if you buy a pepper plant, it will come with a tag. I stick that tag down so you just barely see the top of it.
Okay.
Another thing I have seen is Fimo clay markers. So Fimo clay is this clay that you can make and roll it out and then you bake it. So it's a hard ceramic, and they've written in that names of things.
Okay.
It's always cutesy, like carrots, tomatoes, basil. I'm like, I knew that part. But you could do that and then write on the back of it if you wanted, that kind of thing. You could also put things into, like if you had a printout and you put it inside of a plastic bag, and then you put the plastic bag on a fork or some sort of thing like that. The plastic bag would protect it, or saran wrap kind of thing. People have taken wood and like written on that with a wood burner, and then you seal the entire thing. You put that in there, then it's sealed. So those are fancier ones. But the plastic slats are using plastic. It's the cheapy, this works. And then there's also, you can buy a whole package of like 25 little plant stakes. They're about that big, depending on the size you buy. And you can write on those with a wax pencil or a Sharpie. And that will usually last you a season. I find that I do that with all of my plants. I use those plastic markers because it just works really well for me to transfer things. From my seeds trays to my pots and stuff. And I sometimes have to rewrite the numbers with a Sharpie, but my numbers are like font 8 on there, so they tend to disappear a little bit. But that helps me, and then once it gets into the garden, because I've got a really good map and a halfway decent memory, and I can recognize the difference between things. Tomatoes still, he'll come in with a whole handful of tomatoes. I'm like, where did you get those? I don't know. Which plant? Like, what is that? It's a little red cherry tomato. It was amazing. Which red cherry tomato of the 4 we planted was it? You know, kind of thing. But those, that will help. There's some at least different ideas. Pinterest has amazing, cute ideas. So I'm like, yeah,
That's
that's way too creative and not specific enough.
No, that's a good start.
So, yeah. Any other questions or ideas or
Yeah, do I gotta do it all, guys? Come on.
So I made the first 4 months of this year specifically about getting people ready to go into the garden and start. The next 4 months is going to be pretty much people, I hope, are going to be doing something in their garden and working on things. So I didn't really have I didn't know how much interest there would be, and everybody's going to be busy, kind of thing. So would you guys be interested in having like a garden class in a garden somewhere, or a garden project, or that kind of thing, or just kind of let you guys be, and then maybe in the fall pick up with like harvesting, seed saving, canning, that kind of thing?
I would love that, the seed saving, the canning, stuff like that. But I love growing things, but I still have challenges in how to preserve the food that I grow. So like, I know I can freeze it, I know I can hot water bath it, I don't have a pressure canner yet. And so to know which ones, like blanching the kale and freezing that, things like that would be awesome to know.
Okay. I have a hard time turning a plant into food too, so I'm like, I just need a personal chef to come and like, I've grown you everything, here you go, make it food. So, any other thoughts, or?
I have one more question about potatoes.
Okay.
Growing them in a box.
Yeah,
I don't have a
like
lot
a
of,
cardboard box?
like a cardboard box, so you
Okay.
throw it away at the end of the season
Mhm.
and get your potatoes out of that.
It'll rot on you, yes, and then you're just like,
I'm okay with that.
yep. So there is a lot of, again, Pinterest, blogs, things of that, like growing potatoes in a container for that specific reason. It might have to be a pretty sturdy cardboard box because it might rot on you.
Okay.
And two, the whole cardboard good, not good thing might be an issue. Like the chemicals in cardboard, all of that kind of stuff. How's the cardboard held together? Is it tape? Whatever, that kind of stuff. There's also, you can do it like in a bin sort of idea too, or a grow bag, or those types of things as well, if the cardboard becomes worrisome. But if you just want to try something for the heck of it, go for it. Because you have to keep putting in more soil as the plant grows to create more space for it. And then at the end, you have your fruit.
Right.
So I know they sell a thing that you're supposed to be able, I 90% think that this is staged, but like it's a box and you could take off the lower slats of it, and you're supposed to be able to like fish your hand into this just lovely friable soil that is not root bound at all and pull out this potato. I'm like, I don't know how true that
One
is.
potato.
Theoretically, that could work. I don't think getting it out is going to be as easy as what they show, this practically clean potato coming out. But
They're planted.
yeah, but that's another thing that I've seen done, and it seems to work really, really well because the process of filling it up and doing all the things it's all accurate.
Okay. It's on my list.
Anything else? This is the first class I actually finished on time.
Good job, Shannon.
So, all right. Well, I will work on maybe fall classes, and our lovely Miss Gail might be tagged for canning because she's amazing at it. And then seed saving would definitely, I already have a class already made for seed saving that I've given. Seed saving, if you want to seed save though, you need to start thinking about that now. Because if you're growing more than one kind of cucumber or curbacea, they will all pollinate each other, and so you have to like pollinate it yourself and then put a rubber band on it so nobody else gets happy with that flower. Bees mainly would be the one. So some of that you have to, think ahead. Only grow one type of that variety of a thing if you want to save seed from it, especially if it's one that very easily cross-pollinates. Tomatoes usually are fine. They don't cross-pollinate too much. Yeah. All right, please take a flower home with you. Be careful of the pollen again so you don't get it on your clothes.
I did.
I think I have,
I did too.
how many did we bring, Libby? I think we have 8 of them.
There's enough for everybody.
Okay, so everybody can take
This
one. There's one bag there, there's a bag there, and I think there's 2 up here. And so, yeah, please take one. And yay!